you have the record. When you have the recording, you're welcome to rewatch it, of course, but also share with anyone whom it might be useful for them to have. That's absolutely okay. That's what this is for. It'll go on YouTube, so it's anyone's game, really. Okay, so let's dive in this afternoon. Thank you for sharing all of those different words that popped up in regards to how you're feeling. It's always nice to do that, just to check in and for me to know kind of what the feel in the room is. And I'm getting a consensus, that we're tired, that we're hot, that we're tired. Some of us are exhausted, but there's also an element of curiosity and excitement as maybe that's for this afternoon, or maybe that's as we move into the end of the year. I too am feeling hot. I'm feeling quite energized because I love doing things like this. I find it, I guess I find it exciting to be able to come together and talk about a topic that everyone's talking about, but to be able to bring to it hopefully a new lens for you this afternoon and to get you to think about things differently now and as we move into the next year. So in my little promo, I shared, would we call it an advertisement? I don't know, whatever I sent out that said, hey, come to this. I talked about some different things that we'd be covering. So, developing our sustainable energy, building self-awareness, belief work and why that's important, myths and truths to wellbeing. And then hopefully at the end of today, you're going to walk away with a bit more of a clear vision around what you desire, confidence to say yes, the sense of appreciation for teaching, and how you can move forward, as well as clarity in those different areas. So that's what I planned for today. But I would really like to know, what would you like to get out of today's session? What would you like to walk away with in the next 45 minutes or so? You can pop that in the chat box. I don't know why it is hot and I'm drinking some kind of chai latte, I think, because I'm off coffee at the moment. Not that I would drink coffee at this time of day, but that's not helping how warm it is it? You know why I'm doing this. So if you've just joined us, what would you like to get out of this afternoon? What would be good for you to walk about? Information about my membership offering. Oh yeah, we will go through the membership at the end for sure. Absolutely. Different programs, yeah, absolutely. So different ways I can support will be something we will discuss right at the end. So if you want to hang around for that, you're more than welcome to. Support your colleagues and self, yeah. If you're not sure, one of my coaching groups that I'm a part of, she's a psychologist and coach, and I kind of study under her, and we do training modules together, and then we come together twice a month to kind of unpack different things. And she always asks us to set an intention when we show up. So like, what's your intention for being here? What do you want to get out of it? And then at the end of it, she actually asks us how we went. I'm not going to do that today. I'm not going to pull you all off mute and say, share. But it's kind of helped to hold me a little bit more accountable for things like this. Work-life balance for yourself and colleagues. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Supporting others. Cool. Wonderful. We're going to start. Just while I remember, yesterday I did the Leading Staff Wellbeing webinar, and if you weren't there, you can access that. I will share that when I share this to you, the recording to you later, so you'll have both of those as well. Because if you're looking for how to support others, there's some key things in that. The balance and synergy between school system, responsibility, teacher, just happy to listen and learn what you don't know. I love that. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Cool. So we are here to talk about wellbeing and teacher wellbeing, educator wellbeing, staff wellbeing, whatever word you want to use. I probably jump between teacher and staff wellbeing just because I was, an educator and teacher myself, and that's what my book is called. But I really try and use the word staff wellbeing. But if you work in a school, we're all teachers, we're all educators. So just know when I say that, it applies to everyone. It's not just about teachers, and it's not just about educators, it's about everyone that works in the school, really. And the thing with wellbeing right now is that there is a lot of information out there. There's a lot of what is it, how do we navigate it, how do we support it, what do we do? And what I want you to be able to do this afternoon, or what I want to give you permission to do, is to let go of some of the things that you might be holding on to in terms of beliefs around wellbeing, in terms of perception. perhaps even in terms of understanding, because there can be an overload and there can be some miseducation out there in regards to what it is. And if you're familiar with any of the work I do, you'll know that I don't subscribe to one definition or one version or one way of looking at well-being. And part of being able to do that requires me to often let go of what I think it should be, or let go of expectations, because so many of us are searching for things, for example, like work-life balance or flexibility or autonomy. And the truth of that is these things really are quite fluid and they flow. And the more we try and hold on to one version of that, in some ways we're restricting ourselves to experience what it is we're looking for. And I know that kind of sounds a little bit contradictory, and it sounds a little bit different to perhaps what you might be being told well-being is, but it's actually around really understanding what it is to you in the moment, day to day, week to week, and being prepared to be flexible with that definition. So rather than thinking about well-being as being a list of things to do or things to achieve, or 5 activities you have to do every day, I come at it from 2 ways. So the first thing I really encourage you to do before you can even think about these 2 things actually is decide what well-being is to you. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all. It's not something that is the same for everyone. So I'm not going to give you a definition today that you can walk away and use, and I'm not going to give you a list of things to do or a checklist. So if that's what you were turning up for, you're not going to get that. I would encourage you after this webinar to spend some time thinking, reflecting on, and pondering, what is well-being to you? You've all shown up here for a reason, or you registered for a reason. So there's clearly something in the space that you want to learn and that you want to expand upon. But we can only do that when we really define it for ourselves. So spend some time thinking about what that is. And then once you've established that, there are 2 things that I kind of think really help when it comes to knowing what to do for well-being. And the first is be really mindful of knowing and identifying what your non-negotiables are. So this means perhaps letting go of thinking that you need to drink 8 glasses of water every day, or sleep 8 hours, or take up running, or do yoga, or learn to meditate, all of those kind of things that we're told we need to do, drink herbal teas and read books, that type of stuff. We need to let go of some of those more broader concepts and come back to actually, what do I need? So non-negotiables are a really great way for you to know how to set up your day well. And sometimes they may happen or they may not, but this is something that I've been able to implement that's really helped me with my well-being no matter what I'm doing. When I was teaching and when I was doing relief teaching, and now I'm doing this work, because non-negotiables are around what do I need to do to function well every day. And so if you know anything about my occupational stress, very close to burnout story, was doing all of the right things. I was getting up at 5 a.m. and I was exercising, and I was meal prepping and doing all of the right food things. And I was setting goals for myself, and I was studying, and I was leading, and I was doing hobby type things, and I was meditating and doing breath work and journaling. But all of the things I was doing in that space were really just to tick the box to say I'd done it. It actually wasn't part of a non-negotiable that I needed. So fast forward a couple of years, and what I've been able to do is really evolve that into a space that allows me to consider what my non-negotiables are around those areas. So I know each day that I have to engage in some kind of movement, whether it is going to the gym or whether it's walking. I know that I do need to drink a fair bit of water. Like, I just have to drink a lot of water. That's part of it. I know that I need probably 8 hours sleep every night, if not 8.5. And so no matter what is going on, I really try and make that happen. That's a non-negotiable for me. I know that I need to eat good food during the day. Otherwise I can't think well. It just doesn't happen. I know that I'm in a better space if I give myself even just 10 minutes of quiet time in the morning, whether that's journaling, whether it's meditation, whether it's breath work. These are the things that work for me. They may not work for you. My partner is not a meditator or anything like that. He does triathlon, so he does lots of running and cycling, and that's what he has to do each morning and evening. But it's all about knowing what works for you. So letting go of some of the things that you are perhaps telling yourself you have to do, and instead asking, what do I need to be able to feel well and be well, and then do those things, rather than just thinking, what should I do? So The other layer to this is really giving yourself permission to move from doing to being. Because right now, when we think about well-being, the next question that often follows, whether it's for yourself or whether it's for those you lead, is what do I do? What should I do? People will say, what can I do for my well-being? What can I do for staff well-being? What can I do for school well-being? And we have to be prepared to know that it's not about doing things all of the time. And in fact, it may not be doing that is needed. Part of it may be coming back to who we're being, who you're being, how you're feeling, because that's going to allow you to really start to recognize who you are. And part of that is moving from understanding what some of the myths are around the wellbeing space into understanding the truths. So it's pretty common in the wellbeing space, especially teacher wellbeing space, to think that physical wellbeing is everything. So how we exercise, exercise or nutrition or movement, diet, whatever it might be. I just excuse me, I think we have some people jumping in the participant thing. I'm just going to check that. Cool. And that's often what happens too. When we think about what should we do for staff wellbeing, you know, it's let's have morning teas and let's cancel meetings or let's get yoga teachers in. And those things really are around our physical wellbeing. And when we also consider what should we do, some of the things that fall into place are around sleep or nutrition or diet for us as well. And that, I mean, all of those things I'm saying are physical wellbeing. They're absolutely essential, but they are not the be all and end all. So it's also about thinking more broader in terms of what aspect of wellbeing do I need to focus on? And there's some new research coming out that really suggests emotional wellbeing is everything. There's a study that's been done on successful people and successful students. And what it highlights is that the better you are able to understand your own emotional self and regulate your emotions, the more successful you're going to be, especially in academic performance, which really strengthens the argument I have around, as educators and as teachers, we need to actually slow down our wellbeing journey and learn who we are. We can't rush this and we can't just do more. We've got to be prepared to actually get to know who we are. And I'll tell you why perhaps that hasn't happened like it is with our students, even though, I just lost my screen, even though we perceive that may be the case. The next piece is around, it's not just about what you do. I mean, we can get massages and we can get mani-pedis and we can leave work early and we can have our term breaks or holidays and we can plan weekends away and we can do all of those nice things, but that's not essentially always going to help. It really is about how we're feeling and who we're being. So often the doing piece is about addressing the symptom of well-being rather than what's causing it. So if we're feeling tired right now, like Manny said, if we're feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, if we're feeling stressed, or if we're feeling like we've got a lot on, what can actually happen is we can fall into a space of thinking, well, I'm going to go and do something to make myself feel better. I'm going to go out for dinner. I'm going to get a massage. I'm going to go away for the weekend and just switch off. And those things can be useful and helpful, absolutely, but they don't support us long term. And this is where we're finding ourselves in a bit of an icky space, a bit of a transition space at the moment. We really want to be able to start asking, you know, what's the cause of that? What's causing the tiredness, the overwhelm, the stress? Now, I appreciate that at this time of the year, it can kind of be how it is because a lot happens at this time of year. But I would argue that perhaps potentially there's too much happening at this time of year. And so when we look at that, maybe we need to be rescheduling or redesigning or reorganizing some of those events and intensities that happen at the end of the year that cause us to feel quite drained. In fact, I was talking to a school leader last week. I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this, but I'm trying to find out, and I would love if someone knows the answer. This is about reporting. So we know we have to report twice a year, and once on semester 1 and once on semester 2. But do the reports have to go out in semester 1? That is my question. Because we cram all of this stuff into term time. And so it's quite intense. It's the same now. We cram it all into the end of term, and that layers on top of everything else. But what if we extended that and reports went out at a later date rather than while we're trying to finish the year or they finish the term. They can go out at the beginning of term 3. Great. I would love to know if that's written down somewhere. And after the end of year. Good. I love that some people know. I wonder if it's different state to state. That would be my other question. Yeah, cool. That's in Queensland. Oh, that's good to know. My friend I was talking to the principal, she's in the ACT, so I don't know. But these are the things we can start to consider and play with when we're talking about stress symptom versus cause. And if we're just band-aiding that symptom of feeling tired, then we push through. But I think there's some flexibility and autonomy around some of the rules we subscribe to in our spaces. And if we're being fluid with some of these, or we're being curious about that lovely saying of this is the way it's always done, then we might find some opportunities to change things. I am so appreciative of that. Thank you, those people who know, and I'm going to go and look that up. So I think that could really help. So these are the conversations we can start to have when we're talking about. It's not about putting on an extra morning tea when everyone's tired at the end of the year. It's actually about looking at what's causing it and can we do it differently next year, and can we change the way we do it. And I realized too that's a whole school example, and I guess in some ways a leadership example. But this too is about asking these questions in our school spaces, because this is our well-being. And the last one that I want to highlight here is that, well-being's not easy, fun, or pretty. We kind of want it to be, and we're sold a version of it being easy, fun, and pretty, and that it's about being happy all the time. And it's absolutely not that at all. It can be hard, boring, and messy. Like it's hard to get up when our alarm goes off, when we're tired. It's sometimes boring to have to eat the lunch that we prepared when other people are getting takeout, but that if you don't eat that lunch that you've prepared, then you go and get takeout, then you're not going to have energy in the afternoon. It can be really, really challenging sometimes to do the things that you need for your well-being. And this is where we have to include a level of responsibility. And this term I borrow from a friend, Emily Chadbourne, called self-parenting. We have to do a little bit of self-parenting here. No one's going to tell us what time to go to bed, and our principal's not going to knock on our door or make our lunch for us. We have to be prepared to do those things ourselves. And that means that sometimes it is hard, boring, and messy, and it's not always a quick fix. And when we understand that, when we really know what well-being is, there's some work to do, and there's a bit of like get your hands dirty type of stuff, and we've got to be prepared to lean into that. And if I think about my own well-being experience, I suppose in journey and growth, there were some things I had to do that I really didn't want to do, that I didn't want to change how I was doing things. I was so comfortable in the routine that I'd developed, even though it wasn't good for me, even though it wasn't useful, even though it wasn't helpful, and in fact it was probably detrimental to my overall well-being. So I really had to lean into the space of getting to know who I was and who I wanted to be, so I could start to change some of those things, which is what we're going to talk about next. I want to talk about different pillars of what's needed to get you in a space to help you prepare to do the work for well-being, rather than just thinking about what else can I do. So I'm just going to stop for a second though and drink my tea and do all those things. If anyone has any questions or comments that you want to jump in with now, please go ahead and do that. You're welcome to pop them in the chat box. Oh, Emily Chadbourne, her name is. She's a mindset coach. She's hilarious. You can find her on Instagram. Her Instagram handle is unashamedly human, I think. I don't think I'm just looking for you. I don't think it's Emily Chadbourne. I think it's unashamedly human. She has a podcast as well. Maybe she's back at Emily Chadbourne. Actually, she just is her name. Emily Chadbourne. She's got like a pink background on Instagram. That's where you can find her. Yeah, being rather than doing is refreshing. It is, right? Because we're like, oh, well-being, I've got to do more things. It's completely overwhelming. Like it kind of conflicts in what we're trying to do. It creates more stress. And I want to give you all permission here to just stop doing things. it's like just we can just stop doing things for a moment and actually start to ask the question or questions around what's well-being for me, how do I want to feel, who do I want to be, what would I do if that was true, what's available to me, what's not available, what do I like and what don't I like, what can I do that I'm avoiding, even though I know it will help long term. Like, we need to ask some of these brave, bold questions to really do the work. I don't know how many on here. I have a podcast episode where I talk through my occupational stress, so I'm not going to do it this afternoon. But you know, one of the things that I really had to do when I went from being super close to burnout to where I am now, because it's an ongoing practice, you know, the work of wellbeing never ends, we're doing it all of the time, is really start to kind of lean into how do I want to feel? Like, how do I want to feel each day? And when you're asked that question, I suppose you initially jump to, well, I just want to be happy, because we do. But that's not the normal emotional state of most of us all of the time. You know, we're not happy, we're not energized, we're not enthusiastic all of the time, just as we're not sad or angry all of the time. In fact, our most resourceful emotions are in that space of feeling calm and grounded and centered. That's how I want to feel most of the time. Now, of course, there are going to be things that pull me up out of that, where I might be ecstatic or excited or energized, and then there'll be things that pull me down from that, which could be, you know, angry, annoyed, frustrated, disappointed, whatever that might be. The thing about wellbeing is we have to have tools and resources that bring us back to that center point and that balancing point. And the honest truth is, I don't have a list of things that you're going to be able to do to implement to get you back to your point of equilibrium. You have to figure that out for yourself. And that's why I think this work can be tricky. We can go through a whole range of resources and strategies and tools, and that's what we'll do in the membership. But essentially, it's an experiment. Like, you've got to be prepared to experiment with things, and some days they'll work and some days they won't. All right, let's keep going. So I'm going to share with you these pillars of self-efficacy, or what I think become the pillars of self-efficacy when we're looking at this through a teacher and staff wellbeing lens. So in my original framework, it's in my book if you haven't seen it, I'm happy to flick it to you. I unpack teacher wellbeing into two areas, so everyday and workplace wellbeing. And in our everyday wellbeing, we have energy and function, resilience, and emotional regulation. I kind of forgot then. And the key piece that allows all of that to come to fruition is building our self-efficacy. So in the education space, we are pretty good at collective efficacy. We know a lot about it. We talk about it for our students, or for the purpose of student learning. And we know that we've got to build collective efficacy when we're collaborating and working together and having that belief that all our students can learn. Self-efficacy is similar. You know, it's about having the belief that we can actually drive change. And this is what I want to hand over to you this afternoon. I want to hand over to you that you do have the ability to drive some change in your own space and do your own things. And this is the difference between individual and collective responsibility. So there are some things, especially in the everyday wellbeing framework, like energy, function, resilience, and emotional regulation, that sit in individual responsibility space. Like, no one can do that for you. You can't outsource those things. Your workplace can't do that for you. And then there are some things that sit under collective responsibility through a workplace lens. And I narrow that down to three areas, which is really around us. Are we set up to work well and be productive? Are we engaged in the work that we do? So does it have meaning and purpose? And are we growing as professionals? And do we know what great performance looks like in our setting? And do we know when enough is enough? Because sometimes that's really hard to discern between, and we've got to develop some clarity around not enough is enough because we're trying to do less or because we're trying to underperform, but where is that level of performance and expectation to know that, you know what, enough is enough at this point and it's great. And this is the shared level of where we all kind of say, I've done enough today, or I've done enough in this space. And then if you want to do more, awesome. But we need to establish some of those clear expectations around how we work. But what I want to share with you today are these three things that help to develop your self-efficacy so that you can move into a space of driving your own wellbeing journey. And that's what it really is. You know, I think one, I really would have liked this about 7 years ago when I went through what I went through. But also, I think it's really important too that we feel empowered to create changes where we can create them. And we need to move past, well, I think we should just all stop paying attention to the media, because none of the headlines at the moment are good for us. We don't need to read those. But also, I think we need to start stepping into a space of writing our own story, writing our own narrative about what teaching looks like and what teacher wellbeing looks like. And that means that we can influence some spaces. There's some really cool stuff that we can do, and we kind of can't sit around waiting for the system to change or someone else to do something for us. We need to let go of the idea that we can outsource our well-being to others and start to reflect and consider how we insource that. And it comes through these 3 key steps. So the first one is around having self-awareness. And self-awareness, I'm sure you've all heard the term before, but it's actually about understanding and pinpointing and knowing the things within you that might need to shift. And it's not just like, oh, I need to sleep more, I need to exercise more. It's actually connected to our beliefs, our values, our behaviors, our patterns, the way we work, the way we connect, our thought patterns, where we focus, where we give time and energy. Once we have self-awareness of these things, once we have awareness around those different pieces, then we can start to bring into that self-compassion. Now, self-compassion is essential because self-compassion is sometimes the piece we want to skirt past, or if we don't embrace this, we can be really hard on ourselves. We can think, oh, I'm not doing this good enough, I haven't done this well enough, I should be like that teacher over there, or I should be like this educator, or I should be able to, do X, Y, and Z better, or whatever it might be. And when we're in that space, when we're in a space of comparison doesn't allow compassion. And often what we are doing to ourselves through that lens, we wouldn't extend to others. So we have to extend the same compassion to ourselves that we would to others. And we have to know, I'm a big believer that everyone's doing the best they can with what they've got. And we have to extend that to ourselves. We're doing the best we can with what we've got. And that includes information, resources, time, energy, but it also is connected to our own filtering systems, our circumstances, our beliefs, the way we see the world, all of those things. It's just the isness of the situation. And we have to be able to go, you know what? It's okay where I'm at. It might not be where I want to be, but I have awareness of that now. And so then I can move into self-development. And that's how we get that change. We have awareness, we have compassion for what's happening and the isness of the situation. And then we move into self-development and change. But often we go straight to change, and we haven't built the awareness of what's going on for us, why it's happening, why it's not happening, why it's important, why it matters, how we're going to go about it. We haven't extended any self-compassion. And so we're in this icky space of trying to do something, but we're not even really sure if it's ours. Maybe we've borrowed it from someone else. So when we are in that space of self-awareness, essentially what's happening is we're identifying something needs to change. Now, this doesn't mean change because it's not good. This could mean change because we want it to be even better. And I want to highlight here that there is a perception around well-being that we should only do something about it when we're at rock bottom, or we should only do something about it at the end of term or the end of the year or on Fridays or on the weekends. We've got to wait until we've got nothing left. And that is what is causing, I think, this heightened sense of stress or of exhaustion and of overwhelm. I'm really reluctant to use the word burnout because it's a whole thing on its own. I have a podcast with Dr. Jenny Brooks on that, and there are varying degrees of stress and overwhelm before burnout even comes. So you can't be burnt out on a Friday afternoon, just clarify that. But when we know something needs to change, we can then start to consider, well, what is it, why, and how? What I was going to share before I went on my burnout tangent is there is some stigma around well-being, and that we shouldn't do, what right do we have to do anything? And there are people worse off, or it's not that bad, or, like, why am I worthy of this? And there's actually a little history piece that comes from the positive psychology or popular psychology movement. I'm just really going to quickly share this with you because I think it highlights what's been going on in some of this space. So prior to World War II, psychology had 3 main areas of focus. So the first area of focus was supporting the gifted and talented. The second area, these are in no particular order, by the way, the second area of focus was working with people who had mental illness or were mentally unwell. And then the third area was working with people, everyone, all of the other people, just to help them flourish and thrive and live their best life. But post-World War II, because of all of the things that were occurring in that space, and depression, and people not having jobs to go to, and everything that followed that, in America, through the American Psychology Association, they decided to put a whole bunch of funding into just helping those that had mental illness or were mentally unwell. And so psychology took a shift, and that became its central focus. Fast forward to 1996, Martin Seligman, who's responsible for PERMA, became the president of the APA, so the American Psychology Association. And he said, hey, you know what? There are actually 3 key pillars to psychology. We've been focusing on one predominantly for a really long time. We've been doing a little bit of gifted and talented, but we really haven't been looking after everyone else. We need to do that. And so some say he is the father of positive psychology, or he's responsible for the movement, but he's not the founder of it. There are so many people that contribute to this space now. What he is responsible for, though, is bringing it back to the forefront of how we see it now. I guess you could say he's responsible for the self-help books and the things we see in Kmart and bookshops and this self-help movement. But it always existed. It was never intended for us not to live a flourishing life, to not always ask, what can I do? What's that 1%? What's that next thing? What's that goal I can work on? It just was morphed into something different because of how the funding was pushed out. I have a paper on this. Well, let's be clear, I did not write a paper. There is something by Martin Seligman where he unpacks this, which I can send you if you are interested in, you want to like nerd out on that, that's absolutely fine. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I do have it. I think I reference it in my book as well. But that's why there's this stigma around, should I work on my well-being? Am I worthy enough? Am I falling apart enough? Maybe I'll wait till it's really, really bad and I've got nothing left. And it was, psychology was never designed that way. And so we have to be okay with accepting where we are and saying, what, if I want things to be different, I can do that. So the one question I often ask myself is, what's that one little thing I could tweak? Not because it's not bad, but just because it could be even better. And I think Dylan Willem has a quote as well. Something like, what if every teacher was striving to be better, not because they're not good enough, but because we can be? And I love that. And I think it's the same, right? It's not because we're not good enough, or it's not because well-being isn't great or whatever. It's just because we can, we're here, we're living, let's do it. So our self-awareness allows us to be in that space of knowing something needs to change. And then when we bring in that self-compassion, we can remove judgment and embrace acceptance. This is key. We have to be prepared to let go of judging ourselves. I'm not good enough. I haven't done a good enough job. This isn't working for me. I need to try X, Y, Z. And we just need to accept it. I mentioned before the isness, because if we don't do that, this is what hides in that space. We have things like self-doubt. So I can't do it. I'm not going to be able to make change. I can't work on my well-being. We step into procrastination. I don't have time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the resources. I'm going to throw myself into my work instead. And I'm not going to give myself permission to do those things, and which become excuses. And so that's what happens if we don't move from self-awareness to compassion. We stay in this space of, I know I need to do something, but actually I'm too busy. It might not work, so what's the point? I've got too many other things that I need to focus on. And we have to be prepared to go from awareness to compassion, and then move into the space of self-development. And this is action and change. This is action and change, and where we're really going to start to do something different. I just realized those circles changed. I put them in the wrong spot. But this is where we get things like feeling discontent with what's going on. So we might know something needs to change and we might be okay with it. But if we don't take action, we're really going to start to feel discontent in our life. We're really going to start to feel unsteady. We're really going to start to feel at ease. Like, I know something needs to change. I know my well-being could be better. I know I could be doing X, Y, Z. I'm okay with where I'm at. I want to do something about it, but I can't. And so we feel discombobulated. We feel like we're out of balance because we're not taking action. And we can also step into spaces of denial or fear around this, like, it's too hard. What if it doesn't work? And you know what? There is no certainty. There's no certainty that anything is going to work. There is a lot of research and science behind things like positive psychology interventions, or what you can do for your physical well-being, how to go through building your coping strategies around resilience. All of that exists. We teach all that inside the membership. But the key piece is that even with awareness and self-compassion, unless you take action and drive change for yourself, you're going to still feel like it's not enough. Awareness isn't enough. Self-compassion and awareness together isn't enough. You actually have to start taking steps. This is like the hard piece, because we want it to be easy, right? We want it to just be a list of things to do, but we actually have to be prepared to go into, well, what is it for me? What does it mean? And what do I need to do? So there's a concept in the coaching realm called pain versus pleasure. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it. I learned it quite a number of years ago when I did my coaching studies. And it's the idea that when we are about to embark on change, we will do more to avoid pain than have pleasure. So we might say that we want to get up early and go for a walk or exercise or do something. But in actual fact, if we do that, it's going to be hard work. So what we do is we stay in bed and we hit snooze, because even though the outcome of getting up is going to be great, the interim moment where we actually have to get up early and, wake and rise is too painful. So we will do more to avoid that pain than have the pleasure of the later outcome. It's the same as when we start to shift something in regards to how we work, when we put boundaries in place. Boundaries is a great example. It's actually, it's not as simple as just saying, hey, I've got a boundary here and drawing a line in the sand. When we're talking about boundaries, again, a buzzword, we have to be really careful with knowing what we're doing, why we're doing it, who it's going to impact, how we communicate those things. If you're going to set a boundary around not having email on your devices, on your phone, which I highly recommend, you need to be able to communicate that, and you need to be able to stick to that, and your team needs to be able to support that. And so there can be a perception that having those conversations around what that boundary is, or communicating that, going against the grain of everyone else, is quite painful. And so we will do more to avoid that initial conversation because it's painful, rather than the pleasure or the happy moment of executing the boundary. Does that make sense? Yeah, awesome. I was coaching a teacher once, and at her school, they had a WhatsApp group, in her little team, they had a WhatsApp group. And this teacher was sharing with me that she wanted to get out of it. It wasn't positive, it wasn't helpful, it wasn't resourceful, it was going off all of the time, like weekends, all of the time. And so our conversation was, well, why don't you exit from the group? Why don't you share that you're happy to be communicating with people around work tasks and what that looks like, but being part of the WhatsApp group isn't good for your well-being. And the conversation, it highlighted that actually having that initial conversation was going to be so uncomfortable, and that they didn't want to cause any tension. It was easier to stay in the WhatsApp group than actually exit and then have the pleasure piece of, I'm removed from that. Yeah, we work in really odd ways as humans, but we do more to avoid pain than have pleasure. And when we're looking at well-being and things that we might need to put in place, this is important to know and understand, because we want to hold on to the easy route, which actually means avoiding some painful things rather than following what's going to make us feel better. Yeah, awesome. So my question to you is, gosh, I've done a lot of talking, actually. I'm going to stop. Does anyone have any questions or anything they want to highlight before I do this a little bit? Just going to check. Yeah, awesome. Okay. So my question to you is, you can all answer this now, actually, or think about, like, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? I assume many of you are here because you're thinking about, I want my well-being to be different next year. So what do you want that to be like? If you can give me 3 words for how you want to feel, not what you want to do, but how you want to feel in regards to your own well-being, personally, professionally, in and out of the classroom, whatever you need to do to get these words happening, what would those words be? What would your point of equilibrium be? I shared with you before that mine are really around feeling calm, grounded, and balanced. Like, they're my 3 words, right? Like emotionally balanced, or calm, centered, and grounded, really. They're my 3 words. That's how I know when I'm in an optimal state of well-being. How do you want to feel? Where do you want to go? What are the things that you're looking for? Or are you a bit like, oh, I don't know how to answer that. I think I'd just rather you tell me to sleep 8 hours. Here we go. Control, enthusiastic, balanced. Yeah. Miffy, I'd be curious as to what you are referring to when you say in control. Like, in control of what exactly? because, you know, there are some things we just can't control. And so we have to be able to identify the controllables and control those, but be prepared to be flexible as well. Serenity, harmony, balance, productive, calm, in control. Control again. Balance, stimulated, in control. Energized, optimistic, in control of my behaviors, able to be life-giving and really, yeah, that's so nice. Relationship responses, in control of my workload. Yeah. I'd love to have a really deep dive discussion into why in control has come up so many times, and I'm curious. And you don't have to tell me at all, because I appreciate this is a public space, but control is an interesting, I suppose, piece when we look at it from a wellbeing and human behavior perspective, because ultimately, you know, it could be said that we control nothing, but everything is out of our control. The only thing we can control is ourselves and how we respond to things. But anything external from us, we can't control. Control of emotions, behavior. Yeah, excellent. That's a great tangible example of what you can do. Oh my goodness. 2023 Amy is not the same as 2013 Amy in terms of emotional control and how I respond to situations. And I think when you develop that sense of emotional awareness and learn your stories and beliefs and what's going on for you and your mindset and why you do the things the way you do, oh my goodness, like self-compassion comes in hugely. But you go on this journey of being able to find space between what happens and then your emotions and how you respond. Oh, we could go right into emotions. The science of emotions is fascinating. And ultimately, really in short, the new research is saying that our emotional responses are already predetermined by how we have responded or what we've seen in the past. And so we've already decided, or it's already mapped in terms of how we're going to respond when the situation occurs, and it happens really quickly, which means if we can find space, we can start to manipulate some of those reactions and responses. But we are absolutely able to influence our emotional responses and behavior. But it's a huge piece. I mean, that was 1 second of a whole book, of whole books of things. To know where your limits are and acknowledge and execute boundaries. Yeah, that's nice, right? And I suppose that's about asking yourself, what am I okay with and what am I not okay with? And where am I prepared to be flexible or not? And then also, how do I communicate that with others? Like, there's so many layers to what that can look like. I spoke of Emily before. I did a podcast with her. I don't think it's been published yet, on people pleasing. And sometimes when we feel like we're out of control, people pleasing comes into it. You know, we say yes to that things as educators because we just say yes. And so it's learning all of the pieces that perhaps are contributing to you feeling like you're not in control, and analyzing and reassessing some of those things. Not feeling so overwhelmed with all the things you have to do. Yeah, it's a skill set to develop. I struggle with overwhelm, and I struggle with telling myself everything is equally as important. It's not. And I actually, when I was kind of transitioning from coming back from huge amounts of occupational stress and then back into, I say occupational stress because that's what my integrative GP called it. But if I'm being really honest, it was not just work that was impacting my stress. There were so many other things I was doing outside of it. Even though I would have told you I was doing the right things, they actually weren't, and they were going against my well-being as well. So we'll just call it like chronic stress. When I came back from that space, I used to take my to-do list to my leader, and I would say to her, these are all the things on my to-do list. Like, I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I don't know where I should focus my time and energy. She used to help me put them into 3 categories. One category being, absolutely, please do these. I need you to do them. And these are the deadlines. And this is what you need to put your time and energy into. This is what I'd like you to do if you get more time or if you have space or capacity. And then the last list was like, what on earth is this doing on your list? This shouldn't even be here. They're the things I was making up that I was telling myself I needed to do, but I didn't. So sometimes we need other people to help us work through that. Yeah, definitely. It's about having strategies in place to control responses to the chaos and change, and having the ability to control how my workload changes. Yeah. Have ability to control how your workload changes. I think that we would need to have a dive into that, because there are some things we can't control around workload, but there are certainly things we can look at in terms of how we respond to workload. Yeah, awesome. Just my discipline. Yeah, okay. Yeah, excellent. Okay. It's really important that you know where you want to go, because to say something like, I just want my well-being to be better, unless you can language specifically in what area and what that might look like, it's kind of impossible to know what to focus on and what to do. And this is why we fall into the trap of just copying or getting 10 things to do for my well-being or a list, and thinking we all have to take up yoga and meditation. The more specific you can be right now at identifying some of those key areas, and the common themes here are around emotional responses, the common themes are around knowing what we can and can't control, how we engage with others, those types of things. The more we can be specific in those spaces, the better you're going to be able to find resources and support to help you do that. The work of wellbeing does not have to be done alone. I did publish an article recently. It was like over $10,000 of investment in my personal development, and it's true. Like it's more. It's like doubled this year. I've always invested in working with mindset coaches and mentors and human behaviors and naturopaths and all kinds of people in this space. I think we don't know what we don't know, and sometimes we also can't see our blind spots. And so it's helpful to go and seek support in different areas and not feel like you kind of have to navigate this on your own. We have to be prepared to identify, what do I want to move away from, but also what do I want to move towards? I asked you a question then really specifically, which was, where do you want to be? Like, what do you want to cultivate? What do you want next year to look like? Which, if I'd asked the question, how don't you want it to be? What's annoying you? What do you want to get rid of? What's causing you stress? I imagine the answers to that question would have come a lot easier, because many of us are what's known as moving away focused. So we can really easily articulate what we don't want and what we don't like, how we don't want it to be, but we struggle to articulate in language what we do want, what we would like, and what we would like it to be. And because we have that gap in our discourse and in our awareness, we can't create or cultivate the change that we want to have. So if I leave you with anything this afternoon, it's spend time asking what you do want. Now, I couldn't do this initially when I was asked to do this. All I could say when I went through that chronic stress period was, and when I was going to my doctor, all I could say was, I don't want to be tired anymore. That was all I knew how to say. I didn't know anything. That was all I could language. It took me months of actually asking, first of all, what don't I want? Because I'm hardwired to do that. Many of us are, and it's linked to survival, negative bias, all of those types of things. I had to start with just listing all of those things and then flip them. So if I don't want to be tired, how do I want to feel? Well, I think I want to feel energized. If I don't want to feel like I'm like emotionally flipping my lid at every little thing, then how do I want to feel? I want to feel like I have awareness and I'm in control and my emotions are balanced. So it's okay if you need to start with, what don't I want? But then give yourself time and space to consider, what do you want? So you know where you're going. It's really hard to know where you're going if you only know what you don't want. That's like saying, I'm going to get in my car. I don't want to go to Melbourne, but where are you going to go? You've got to know the direction you're moving in. So that's the piece that I want to extend and invite you to play with between now and the end of the year, or as school goes back. I'm going to finish by sharing a little bit about the membership now, because I know some of you wanted to do that. So before I move into that, does anyone have any questions or anything they want to ask in regards to that little piece this afternoon? Okay, you feel free to jump into the chat box at any point in time. So many of you would have seen this, and you are actually the first, I suppose the first live audience. It's on my website, but you're the first live audience. So next year I am launching a Wellbeing membership. It's like really original name, isn't it? The Teacher Wellbeing membership. Just be really clear and specific about what we're doing here. And this has come from lots of places. It's come from my own experience. It's come from my book. It's come from working with lots of different schools. And there are two things that are happening. One is I get a lot of reach out from educators saying, I want to do something for my wellbeing, but my school isn't quite ready yet. What can I do? And then the other piece is leaders saying, I want to do something for my staff wellbeing. We can't do something as a whole staff. What could that look like? And this has been in the back of my mind for a while, but it's going to come out. Well, we're going to open doors in January, because I just think now is not like the best time, right, to be starting a personal development course. So I'm letting you all know, and you can ponder it. But we will have the membership kicking off. We'll open doors mid-January. And what this is really designed to do is help do these three things. So we want to cultivate balance within you. And that's where we're going to unpack things like, managing time, productivity, boundaries, conscious decision-making, being intentional with how we spend our time and how we engage with what balance can look like in and out of the classroom and combined. It's where we're going to strengthen self-awareness. So we're going to do lots of work around mindset, around resilience, around building our emotional health, which of course includes emotional awareness, control. We've talked a lot about today, how emotions are made, those types of things. And then we're also going to look at energy, because everything is energy. I hear a lot of people say, I want more work-life balance, but I think that means two things. One is I want better time fluidity between work and life. And I want more energy so I can live in and out of the classroom. Yeah, not just I feel like I'm giving all of my energy to the classroom and I've got nothing left at home. So the term work-life balance doesn't, for me, I don't think it quite captures what we're talking about. We're really talking about how can I embrace some autonomy and flexibility with time? How can I manage workload? How can I be productive? But then also, how can I have energy left in my tank to do all of the things I want to do? And that links to time freedom. So that's what allows us to have time freedom. We bring in our values alignment through balance and awareness, and then we also develop meaning and purpose. They are the pillars that the membership is built on. But it's not a PD. I really want to be clear. It's not a PD day and it's not a PD session. It's actually a membership container, and it lasts 12 whole months, so a whole year. And there's a really specific reason for that. And that reason is teaching is too chaotic to think we can change or fix wellbeing in a term or in 6 weeks or in a 4-week course. I really want to be with you through a whole calendar year, a whole journey, so that we can go through the ups and downs, the highs and lows, the ebbs and flows, the holidays and the peak periods and whatever it might be, so that we can put what we learn into practice around different situations. That's the only way we start to embed different wellbeing aspects and different, things that were on that other slide, so that we can understand how it's going to impact our life in and out of the classroom. But you will get a whole bunch of pre-recorded modules, mainly in podcast form, because I just think that's easier to access, right? You can listen to it while you're doing the dishes, while you're setting up your classroom, while you're driving, whatever. There'll be workbooks in there if you want to go along and do some activities. We'll have a library of resources that I'll be chucking stuff in, and a unique exclusive online community through the portal. But I think the best part is every term we're going to do an intensive 3-part series PD session. So that will include 3 sessions back to back, probably a Thursday afternoon, because that's the day where no schools seem to have meetings. And it will be, 3 weeks in a row, probably every Thursday, where we will dive deep into a positive psychology and mindset, human behavior concept or topic. And that could be around beliefs. It could be around really looking at the science of emotions. To be honest, I haven't decided that yet. I'm going to let members help influence what those topics are, so that it's really relevant and contextualized to those in the space. And in those sessions, we'll have live coaching and mentoring, and we'll also have Q&A sessions. And we may, depending on who signs up, have a separate container for leaders as well. So educators, teachers will have a membership space for their live sessions, and then leaders will have a different one. So that's what is going to happen inside of the membership container next year. We've got a whole bunch of modules. I've rambled some already. I won't read them out to you. They are on the website. But we will be opening doors Jan 15th. So to make sure you're on top of that, you just need to head over to the website, or you're on the emailing list. You'll be getting all of the information around that anyway. Everything we've talked through today is going to be part of that. And I want you to know that when we're talking about the work of wellbeing and the wellbeing work we need to do, it's not just about a list of things to tick off. It's actually about understanding your emotional self, your emotional health. What do you need to function well and to cultivate energy? What is balance to you? How do you set boundaries in place and communicate them? How do you deal with things when they're completely out of control? That is knowing what wellbeing is, and that's how we implement it really well. And it's unique for you, right? What works yesterday may not work today. What works for one person may not work for another. We have to be open to that. Remember the first slide where I had the person letting go of sand? We have to be prepared to let go of some things to step into a place that's going to help us do this work. All right, it's 4:01. That's not bad for me. I'll just say that's not bad. that brings us to the end. Thank you for giving up an hour of your time. That's phenomenal. I really enjoy you hanging out. I know some of you have to run back to class if you're over in WA, and some of you may have more fun things to do on a Wednesday afternoon. I get it. But if anyone has any questions or anything that you want to share, ask, or highlight, please pop them in chat or take yourself off mute. I don't have to run anywhere. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I hope that was useful for you. I hope you got a lot out of that. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Very helpful. Yeah, refreshing. Yeah.
Thanks,
Food for
Chris.
thought.
Great to see you.
Too.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, awesome, Emily. Thanks. Thanks, Quentin. You're welcome. Lovely. Okay. Perfect. All right. Lovely people. I'm not sure if you're there, so I'm going to close. Thank you for coming along. See you later.